It's been said before, and I'll say it again. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So where would you rather be than right here and right now on the Ralph Rant? Let's go.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant, your source for hard-hitting Buffalo Bills takes. Now, here's your host of the Ralph Rant, that veteran watcher of generations of Bills teams, the prophet who predicted Josh Allen's greatness, that opinionated so-and-so you've walked out on parties because of, the Ralph.
Good evening and welcome to the Ralph Rant. Here we are live coming to you from Salt Lake Studios. Glad to have you in the house here. Looks like we got them gathering already, which I'm ultra surprised at because I have not been on these live airwaves for some time, although you've been probably seeing a bunch of vids come out. I've been really concentrating on this offseason to see what we've got going on with these Buffalo Bills. But thanks for joining me tonight. I'm going to check out the comments here. We'll talk about a lot of our questions tonight, what we think is going on. I see Black Cloud's already in the house saying to hit that like button. And indeed, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and become part of the Ralph Rant. Although I think every single guy in here so far is probably already with the channel. So thanks for joining me, guys. We're going to be doing more of a regular thing, Tuesday nights. First part of August, going to be away from the studio for a bit, but we'll be doing some live things. And, of course, we'll be talking about training camp at that point. We've got plenty to discuss, really, the new stadium, which I walked around, not inside, but outside a couple of weeks ago, and certainly what's going on with the team. I'm just finishing getting a video edited up that'll be out in the morning that will be about the talking heads. I think it got started with me with Bill Barnwell, whoever in the hell he is, making his predictions of the Bills and ranking the Bills' skill players at 29th out of the 32 teams, even though the Bills just came off a top 5 offensive season. We could talk about that. We could talk about what's going on with the changes, I believe, that are coming in the offense, and definitely what's going to come with the defense also, which is almost more exciting because that is brand new. Like I said, I've got a couple of vids out on that stuff, the defense dogs of war on the offense. It's called Tools of Engagement. You can check those out on the channel. But we're going to talk a lot about your questions tonight and what you guys think is going on with the offseason. And even I haven't been live in some time, so really the entire offseason. So we could even discuss what the deal is with how you feel about the change in the head coach situation. There's some people that were McDermott loyal and wanted him to stay. Other people, like myself, that are very excited about Joe Brady becoming the head coach. And there's still others that believe that Brady was a hire just to maintain some continuity, because you don't take a team that's been winning for 8-9 years straight and send them to the bottom of the league with a new head coach hire. But I don't believe that's the reason that we have Brady in here. But before any of that, thanks everybody being here. Toast to you guys here. Having a little bit of Cabernet here this evening. Mom has made some sauce downstairs. Going to hit it late after the show here while I finish getting this video out for tomorrow, which will be entitled Unleashed with a question mark. And we'll leave that question at that. So here's to you guys. Thanks for being around. Costco. It was a very good year. Anyway, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? There's so much to get into, and I think talking about Brady coming aboard, I haven't heard a lot of opinions. I've just been generating my own. I tend to watch a few content creators, but not a bunch. I am not really fond of the guys that are always trying to find a problem and complain about something and always wanting to jump on Brandon Beane, who I think has been awesome. You might call me a homer, perhaps, but that's definitely not the case. I just feel good about this Bills team. There's reason to feel good about it, and certainly we can figure out together what we might be seeing when we come into this season. And we've got the blue and red scrimmage, of course, which will be the first time fans will be in the stadium. I understand that is just going to be season ticket holders, although I do understand there's also a practice at the new stadium where regular fans like you and I can get in. And then, of course, the big home opener, Thursday, September 17th, Detroit. Ralph Wilson's original favorite team and the team he wanted to own will be the first to visit the new Highmark Stadium. And we could talk about that also as far as what I think that stadium's going to be. And amongst other things, it's going to be the loudest place in football. And we got Norm, the Bills fan, in here already with a question. Ronnie Delden, I've seen you checking out the channel, a lot of the videos. Thanks so much for that. I trust you are a subscriber. You must be if you're looking at that many of them. But that's another great point to get into. Norm, the Bills fans with us, and asking about Matt Milano, for example, and there are other guys. Certainly, we've got definitely got Trey White out there, and then Joey Bosa is still without a team. I think those are the three main ones from the defense, and I just know that there is a reverence for those players who had been here this long, but I think for part of the same reason that, and I don't think the Bills could pursue Garrett Miles, or Miles Garrett. What am I saying? I don't think they could have pursued Garrett. But the thing is that I'm not sure they would have wanted him. And I put out a video about this because we're talking about, I made the comparison to Jaws. And if they'd put Charlton Heston in Jaws in place of Robert Shaw, who was Quint, the shark fisherman, the movie would have been about Charlton Heston, the fisherman. He would have been bigger than the boat, bigger than the shark, bigger than the other actors, bigger than the movie. And I don't think Jim Leonhard, for his defense, wanted or needed some kind of phenom talent to come in, because I think he's trying to build something. And you don't bring in the crystal chandelier before the house is framed. I guess that's another way of putting it. But as far as the other guys go, and I see Slim Nady is with us here. He's talking about Shaq Thompson should be worth his asking price. And, I actually don't mind the idea of Shaq Thompson is really compared even to Matt Milano. It's funny how the NFL goes in cycles, but I think you have a situation where the linebackers could be a big barometer of that. And back about 15 years ago, I remember the league was trending away from the quick linebackers, and then it went to heavier guys, and then it went back to your sideline-to-sideline linebackers like Milano, who could cover and who could also stop the run to an extent. But the big part about it was the speed and being able to cover. And I think it's even different now with what Brady's doing, because I think you're going to have some thumper inside linebackers, which of course would be the two middle guys of the 3-4, the linebackers being the 4 of that 3-4. But your outside guys will be edge players, and the inside guys will need to be thumpers, because you're going to have a situation where you've got, say, a running back coming through, but you've got line occupied and there's going to be gaps, and that linebacker is going to have to fill a gap. I think the idea of this defense is not to have linebackers having to fight off blocks. But I think Jim Leonhard, with what we've seen, especially at Denver in his tenure there, is tending towards something that really was started about that same 15 years ago. Rex Ryan thought about it back at that point, which was the idea of hybrid players or even positionless players. And that situation is becoming something that I think is coming around more. You saw it a lot with the Broncos last year, and the idea of a hybrid or a positionless player, or perhaps you're going to bring a safety down low, or you're going to have maybe the slot corner who is not like a Teron Johnson, who is having to stop the run, but is a speedier, nastier guy like D. Alford, who the Bills have now. So I think the defense is going to be tremendously different. The stadium is going to be tremendously different. For as loud as the Ralph was, oh my goodness, this is going to be something different altogether with the design of the stadium and how the canopy is designed to reflect the voices. So I've covered about 20 things in about half as many or a quarter many minutes. But this is fun. I've not done the live thing in a while. Yeah, but you were saying Slim Nady, Shaq, and I like the idea of Shaq, and not the others so much. Indeed, and the thing is how do I explain this? I guess with these players is that what he is developing on this defense is going to have guys moving around a lot, interchanging a lot. And I think a Shaq Thompson would be good in this. And I think you might see Caleb Alarms Orr be really good in this situation of an inside linebacker, though I believe he will be able to rush also. And I think one of the things that the D is going to do is you'll have 5 guys up in the line of scrimmage. And let's talk about this for a moment, because what has been the Bills' biggest issue, other than James Cook putting the ball on the ground at Denver, which started that whole goddamned mess last winter. Let's be clear about that. James Cook's fumble, which didn't have to happen. The Bills were winning that game going away otherwise. But most of the other playoff games, the losses have been due to the Bills not having a pass rush. And what you've got to understand with the new 3-4 defense, yes, there's 3 down linemen. And traditionally, they're called a nose tackle in the middle and then 2 defensive tackles, like 3 techs outside of him. And your nose would be like a 1 tech or the shade off the center or something of that nature. I think, well, and to continue the line, for the 5 in the front, I just said 3, but the other 2 are your outside linebackers. And the starters at this point being Bradley Chubb and Greg Rousseau, Groot. And especially if you look at Groot from last season, and you see a lot of prognosticators just harvesting the Bills' stats from 2025 to predict this season, because I don't think they know. But if you use Greg Rousseau and his stats coming from a 5 tech or lining out outside the tackle, but constantly in the face of an offensive tackle and having 5 offensive line versus 4 down linemen, this is going to be different. There's going to be 5 guys on the defensive line, not 4. And that math change is so huge because the outside linebackers, Chubb and Groot, are going to be able to do things and even stunt with the 3 guys in the middle. And remember, it's like, is it easier to hit a lotto with 4 numbers or 5? Much harder with 5 because there's so many combinations of what you could do. And I think that's what we're going to see with this defensive line. And it also, and even though the Bills were pretty much one gap defensive line last year, where your defensive linemen are aiming for a particular gap and not like a 2-gap situation where they're waiting to see where their opposing lineman goes and you go the other way. So they were mostly one gap, but in trying to attack. But Deion Walker was very funny. He was interviewed in the field house during mandatory minicamp, I believe it was. And he was asked, what do you think that this new defensive setup means for the Bills? And he mentioned a couple things. There's going to be guys rotating. And I don't mean platooning a set of defensive linemen out and then sending another out. I'm talking about a given player at a different position and having those players vary those positions so the opposing offensive lineman isn't getting used to one technique. He's not used to Deion Walker the whole game. He might have Ed. He might have Landon Jackson. He might have Michael Hoyt or Greg Rousseau inside. He might have Bradley Chubb. It's like if you ever watch The Christmas Story, the Ralphie one, and I know a lot of you guys know that. It's on every year. And Ralphie's dad gets the big crate, right, during the movie because he's won this huge award or I forget what he called that, a major award. That's right. And the guy brings it to the door, and they bring it in this huge crate, and he's looking at it, and he goes, there could be anything in there. And that's how I feel about this Bills defense. What will be possible? Because you've got Deion Walker not only talking about guys switching positions, but also he clearly stated that this season is different from last. This defense is different from last because he's not being asked to read several things before he acts. He doesn't have several responsibilities. It's like Bradley Chubb said, we're going to get off the ball and get in the backfield and ask questions later. And this is about attacking. And I can't stress this enough, how different this defense is going to look. How different this defense is going to look. And you won't know who is coming from where. Jim Leonard studied under Rex Ryan, who's a master of defense. For those of you that didn't know his past, which you probably mostly do now, Jim Leonard was a Wisconsin Badger. He was an undrafted free agent, came to the Bills. I think it was 2008 or 9. Check me on that. But he came in as a safety. Like I said, a UDFA. He was undersized. He's 5'8", and he was probably 190 pounds in a rainstorm. But he was very smart. His football acumen was great. His mind for the game, his ability to anticipate, and that was good enough for him then, after having signed with the Bills, to then move on to the Baltimore Ravens. And who should be the defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens at the time? This is round about 2009, or I believe probably 2009. Rex Ryan is the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. Jim Leonard comes there. And if you want to do yourself a favor, and I swear, go out and get it. The book is called Collision Low Crossers. It's by Nick Dawidoff, which is D-A-W-I-D, or it's like Davidoff, but a W in there. But he's a writer that was invited into the Jets for a year. And he talks about Jim Leonard a lot, and Leonard learning from Rex Ryan, Leonard being the master of Rex's defense in the back end. He was the big communicator. He apparently had notebooks with page after page after page full of notes about defense and working with Rex. And he was like part coach back then, working with guys. The defense didn't work as well without him. In fact, that second year that the Jets went to the AFC Championship game, which was in 2011, and earlier in the season, they had been beaten by the Brady and Belichick and Belichick and Brady Patriots 45-3. And Jim Leonard wasn't on the field that day. He was down. But then came the playoffs, and the Jets went to Foxborough and beat the Ravens 28-21 and confused the shit out of Tom Brady with what Rex was doing with that defense. And they had Mike Pettin, which we also had. So, and the rest is history. I mean, Jim Leonard did great there. Then he moved on to Wisconsin, back to his alma mater. He coached defense. I think he might have been assistant head coach also in his later years, but he was the defensive coordinator for a number of years, and those defenses were sick. So we're talking about a guy who really has an extended doctorate in NFL defense. And it's funny that his last 2 years with the Jets in 2010 and 2011, he was injured at the end of both seasons. And they felt really bad for him at the end of the 2011 season because he was hopefully going to get a payday like Eric Weddle, that safety that was with I think the Chargers or the Rams, one of the other. But he got hurt again at the end of the 2011 season. He never got that. But did that mean that he ended up going into coaching and not continuing to play and graduating from the Rex Ryan School of Defense and then going and working it out on a postdoctorate level for several, I think 6 years at Wisconsin, then gets into the NFL. Of course, last year he was the passing game D coordinator for the Broncos. And Joe Brady, who we'll have to talk about next, finds or knows Jim Leonhard. They probably had talked before, but Leonhard, you couldn't have made a better choice for defensive coordinator. And that's what we've got putting this defense together. It's got its roots back to Rex Ryan, and it is going to be, I think they called it organized chaos back then. But they're not going to know where guys are coming. And the other thing about this defense that has to be said is the guys that they're bringing in. Because I think when you talk about McDermott's defense, it was run by Hyde and Poyer for years, which made it great. And what McDermott's defense thrived on was the ability to keep plays in front of them. They didn't allow the big play. And when you had two high safeties being able to do that, or one being able to go in low like Poyer did oftentimes, and they could run all these different coverage shells, running what palms, quarters, whatever it may be that they were doing, and McDermott's defenses were complicated. They did great. But when those guys got hurt and were gone, what ends up happening? Well, you bring in a good safety like Mike Edwards from the Kansas City Chiefs a few years back as a free agent, and he never gets on the field. And you think, what, the Bills, Brandon Beane is selecting the wrong guys? No, they couldn't work with McDermott. And we'll get to McDermott soon here. We're going to get to them all. But basically that defense, it took real mental agility to operate in that defense. This is why a Cole Bishop, even though he was hurt in his rookie season in camp, this is why he couldn't get out on the field until the middle or late in the season. And at that, he looked lost. And people say, oh, he's looked lost. We should have drafted Cooper DeJean. Why did we get him? No. That's not the reason. It was McDermott's defense. And when the safeties no longer worked in McDermott's defense, it's a chain reaction. Nothing else is going to work because you can't get as good a coverage. If you had better coverage, the four down linemen will be able to get to the quarterback. With poorer coverage, they can never get there. And we saw it dwindle away the last couple of years. And it's a chain reaction around the entire defense. And that is what happened. And this last season, it got a little worse because, again, we had big questions on safety coming in. You guys remember the Bears preseason game where Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams just had like a world fest on the Bills. And I told you, don't worry about it because it's preseason. But holy crap, they ate them alive. And there was worry last season. And, indeed, the defense was letting Buffalo down in the opener against the Ravens. And they had to come back from that. So my thing is that the defense was suspect last season. McDermott knew it and had to protect it. And how do you protect your defense? Well, simple. You go ahead and keep your offense out on the field longer with less exposure than to your defense. So then the question is how do you keep your offense out on the field more and chew up more of the clock? You run the ball. And after McDermott, after Game 4 in his post-game press conference, and you'll recall that was at home, Sunday night, hosting the Patriots, the Bills wearing those ugly-ass rivalry uniforms. I'm sorry if some of you like them. I hate them. but the Bills are wearing those ugly-ass uniforms, and Sean McGlasses was out there with the clear frames and clear lenses to try to make him disappear on his face, and which begged a couple of questions. I mean, if you're wearing glasses tonight and didn't before, what is that telling us? You weren't able to see? I don't want to get into that part of it. But at any rate, after that game, McDermott called Brady's defense or offense cute. And you'll recall the fumble that was lost when Knox tried to come from the left side like in a jet sweep or fly sweep. I forget. I think it was a jet because he was in front of Josh. And the exchange was bad. The ball's on the ground, early mistake. And still the Bills were close in that game. But then after the game, McDermott calls the defense, or the offense rather, of Brady's cute. He used the term cute. And I think then McDermott had his hands all over the thing all season, protecting his defense and trying to get the wins. And I think there was disagreements behind the scenes. We've heard tell of that. You look at his coordinators. What other team in the NFL had both coordinators up in the booth? Both of them. You almost always, in fact, you do always, in every other 31 teams in the NFL, see at least one of the coordinators, offensive or defense, on the sideline. And that was never the case with Buffalo. They were both upstairs. And then listen to the guys in interviews. Bobby Babbage kind of talking like robot-like and Joe Brady having to respond to being called cute and kind of talking down. McDermott was stepping on these guys because McDermott had become the face, the head of the franchise. He was the man. He was the godfather. He earned it. He made his bones early on. And how did he make his bones? For better or worse, he broke the Buffalo Bills' 17-year playoff drought in his very first season. And I'm sure, he came in there as not the most highly known or popular candidate for a head coaching job. And the Buffalo Bills' job at that point certainly wasn't, specifically attractive as many others might have been. So he gets the job, and he's a smart man, and he's a thorough man. So what does he do? Well, the very first thing he does is he starts turning over every stone, every pebble, looking at every little thing, every last little detail, because he feels that if he does that as hard as he can, the team might be successful enough for him to keep his job, because they know they've been going through coaches. The Bills' earlier history before that, Rex, and then Allen, I think, was in there. But at any rate, so McDermott does this, and they get the shit beat out of them a couple times. They got a 47 burger put on them by the Saints. And then, of course, there was the 5 interception game against poor Peterman when he put him in rather than Tyrod Taylor, rather. Boy, I'm forgetting these names. And there was that game. But he managed, especially at the end, when Andy Dalton threw the ball to Tyler Boyd and scored against the Ravens and knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs and put the Bills into the wild card at the end of Sean McDermott's first season. And Josh Allen is still at Wyoming. Not even there. You got Kyle Williams in the Dolphins locker room screaming up and down. They got in the playoffs. And they lose 10-3 to Jacksonville, can't score. They know they're going to draft a quarterback because they got good draft picks. So everything is really good in Bills land, and McDermott figures, I did that without a quarterback. Boy, if I write this down and do it exactly like this next year with a quarterback, even though it'll be a rookie, and then start moving this forward, this would be my blueprint for winning in the NFL. And he gave it a name. And the name was The Process. That's the process. And the process fared well. Now, part of it was because the defense worked with Hayden Poyer, as I alluded to earlier. But the other part of it was because you had Josh Allen, who started showing flashes, even in the rookie season. How they beat the hell out of Minnesota out there when the Bills were supposed to be crushed. So it was even starting with flashes then. And then, so now you got the defense working. You've got Josh Allen coming on. You get to 2021 or I think, the 2022 season. I forget which because it goes past the new year. But the perfect game against the Patriots and Mac Jones, that was after the wind game earlier in the season, and it was like 8 degrees, and the Bills played the perfect game. And then, 13 seconds happens. And then right there shows the first crack in the process because the process becomes a monster. It becomes large. It becomes inflexible. And McDermott stepped on the whole thing trying to control it. And that was the case with how he treated the coordinators. That was the case of how the sideline was. Do you look at other NFL games and you see a defensive coordinator on the sideline with his guys huddled up and he's like talking to him like this? You've even seen like Belichick do that at times. Did you ever see McDermott, pull off the headphones, always talking like this, talking to somebody up in the booth or whatever? Never. You never saw that. You never saw him talking to a ref. You never saw him go over and have a talk with Josh Allen. Josh would be standing around like a deer in the headlights. There would be a couple of like lower level assistant coaches coming up and talking to him like they're in the Secret Service and speaking low. Nobody was getting in his face. So there was no attitude on the sideline. And McDermott was stepping on the whole thing. Tyler Dunn, who used to write for the Buffalo News and now has the Go Long TD podcast, and he does long-form Bills journalism. You'll recall he's the guy that wrote the McDermott Problem like 3 years ago or whatever. But Ty Dunn learned, he did an interview with Josh Allen, and from other sources, he got the fact that McDermott had his fingerprints all over the offense last season. So Terry Pagula finally has enough. Josh Allen is crying in the locker room. He's got a broken fucking foot, and he's, just has let this team down again. And this time it probably was some of his fault. I guess a broken foot wouldn't have bothered you any. But at any rate, Josh is crying, and Terry Pagula sees this and basically says, I can't F-bomb again, but enough is enough. And it gets rid of McDermott. And then, boy, the people with the axes and torches come out. Terry's an idiot. Bean, that sneak, he got on Terry's good side and they took sides against McDermott. All this other crap. How do you know? How in the hell do you even know what went on there? You don't. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world when Terry Pagula, and I'm sorry I've had this comment up like forever, but how Terry Pagula was put down for what he was talking about with the Keon Coleman. Oh, and the coaches wanted him. And that was such a media disaster and everything. What are you talking about? How refreshing is it for an owner to be honest? And what Terry was talking about there was a disconnect between the coach and the GM, and perhaps the coach and the whole team. And now they hired Brady, and people will want to call it lazy. Oh, well, the Bills' defense was their strongest suit last season. If you're going to change coaches, you want to maintain some continuity. Why not hire the offensive coordinator? Because he'll bring his offense in. And that's what you got a lot of national guys out there saying right now, which is stupendously ludicrous. Because if you look closely at what the Bills are doing, you've got a completely different kind of leader and different kind of attitude at the top. And no one's paying enough attention to that. Joe Brady is intense, but he's cool. And he's real and he's deep. Watch his introductory press conference. You don't think this means something to that guy, but I think he's really intelligent. And yes, he's been good at offense, but I think he's going to be a better CEO, a leader of men. He's not going to be in there calling the shots directly all the time. It's his final decision, but when you're a proper leader like that, you want to be the dumbest person at the table. You want all these experts around you and their different disciplines and basically helping you put this together. And that's what he's done. And if you don't believe that's happened, go listen to Pete Carmichael Jr., the Bills' new offensive coordinator. Listen to his pressers, or listen to Jim Leonard's press conferences, and listen how these guys talk and how free and confident and professional and sure of themselves. And then go back last year and listen to Bobby Babich or Joe Brady like he was a dog that had been hit a few times. Go and watch him. I'm telling you, this is different. And Brady's attitude is different. He says right at the opening presser, he didn't say these words. And he said he loves Sean McDermott. But McDermott every week is, well, it's hard to win in the NFL, and you have to earn the right to win. And, of course, those are true maxims, but it's like the attitude with which he says them. Because Brady is like, no, we don't have to play them. They got to play us. They got to play Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And speaking of Josh Allen, that brings us to what is going on with the offense and Pete Carmichael Jr. And Pete Carmichael Jr. is a 25-year student of Sean Payton. I know he's been coaching that long. I don't know if it's been completely under Sean Payton, but for a very long time. And he reminds me of like a doctoral professor in his press conferences. And you could tell his mind when he's talking and thinking, and he uses a few things. He says a lot, but it's cool because I believe that he is, from what I've heard him say, he's taking the Bills' offense, and it's as if you're going to keep the same frame of the house, but you're going to put new siding and windows and a new roof on it. I mean, it's going to look completely different. You're not going to believe it's the same team or house, as it were. Because I think what's going to happen here is that it's going to be a complete change. And if you listen to both Brady and Pete Carmichael Jr. in their press conferences during the mandatory minicamp at the start, and they're both asked different questions and come up with the same answer, and go check this in my Tools of Engagement video. It's on the channel. And what they say both is, well, with James, he was great. And, Brady's like, especially after being out the preseason last year, he'd come in and did what he did, but, he took a lot of hits. And then Carmichael says something to the same effect. They both talk about, well, it's a thing of we're going to look at it week to week. And this is going to be different. And then they talk about, well, we want to give these other backs some more run also. Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, they're both great out of the backfield, catching the football. Buffalo is going to have a running back screen game, perhaps since the first time since maybe the Super Bowl years. And they will have a running back screen. And it will probably feature Ray Davis and Ty Johnson more, and maybe even Ty Johnson more than that if Ray keeps on returning kicks, but I doubt that's going to be the case with some of the new guys they have in. So you're going to see that. You're going to see more throws to the backs. You're going to see the tight ends used more deceptively. Carmichael talked specifically about being deceptive with the tight ends, being able to come in with big people, like in 13 personnel, which of course means the 1 is how many running backs you have, and the 3, in this case, indicates how many tight ends are on the field. And if you can come in and fake running power, and then Josh flips it over the linebacker's head to Jackson Hawes or Dalton Kincaid, or you sneak something short and then hit Kincaid down the seam, there's going to be some stuff going on. I believe the Bills will be the most prolific passing offense in the league. I'm not saying they're going to lead the league in passing, or Allen will lead in touchdowns. I'm not talking about numerical predictions. I'm talking about a big change from being this run-heavy team. The last season, that was McDermott protecting the defense. You run the shit out of James Cook. And they did. And he won the rushing title. And the Bills rushed the ball more times than anybody else in the league. And the Bills had more rushing yards overall than anyone in the league. And the Bills were number 2 only to the Ravens in run-to-pass ratio. So I'm here to tell you this is going to be different. And it's going to be different in the sense that Josh Allen is a different quarterback than Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. Patrick Mahomes used to be some of this, but Josh has got more raw talent. Because whereas guys like Herbert and Burrow and I won't go digging for more, but they're technicians with the football. Josh Allen is an artist. It's different. And I believe the Bills are setting up an offense that is going to have more answers for Josh to throw to on every play. So he feels comfortable and confident that there's somebody he's going to be able to flip the ball to on this play. It's going to be like that. And it's going to give him the ability to make choices after the snap and create, because that's what artists do. They create. And if you can get Josh into a situation where he could be creative post-snap behind the line of scrimmage, you can be dangerous. I mean, that would be a dangerous situation. And then overall with this team on both sides of the ball, you now have an attitude. There's an attitude on defense. We're going to be nasty. Why did they ask Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Bill's safety? You know, why did Jim Leonard want to bring you into the Bills? And he says, he wanted me to be mean. They want mean dudes. They want aggressive enforcers, apex predators on the football field. And I had somebody slam me on a video for this, stating that, I said that, talent is important in the NFL. But, the talent between me and Jackson Hawes is from here to the moon. And if we back out far enough, we look close. But I'm telling you, the talent in the NFL is like from my basement floor to the thickness of this page. And then there are your levels, and they're at the very top level. Everybody in the NFL is really, really talented. And therefore, for success in any performance-related thing, if you play in a band, which I used to do a lot, or if you're an actress, which my daughter is, or if, you do a podcast or play football or any other kind of sport, talent is never the number one factor in what makes you great. Of course it has to be high, as we just saw with the sheet of paper demonstration. I mean, it's the very upper crust. As Rex Ryan once said, it is harder to get in the NFL than it is to win the lottery. And numerically, that's correct. So Jim Leonard is creating a defense of nasty guys. Caleb Alarms Orr. This dude's nasty. I mean, we've got some dogs on the defense now, and we've got guys on the defense that want to be dogs that haven't been able to. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver. I was talking about Deion Walker earlier, and he, of course, told us about there being rotations on the line with guys playing different positions. But he also talked about how the linemen are now able just to fire off the ball and not having to pause to make a decision, even though that pause could be minutely short. What's going to happen is they're going to be able to come across the line. And so they asked Deion, well, what do you think that's going to mean for Ed Oliver? And Deion Walker just starts kind of laughing. He said, I'm scared. He said, I'm scared for what's going to happen. It's going to be good for me, but I'm scared of what Ed's going to do. I mean, Ed Oliver is going to be fucking terror in this defense. So you've got this attitude with these new guys coming in, CJGJ, Caleb Alarms Orr, D. Alford, Geno Stone. I mean, Caleb Alarms Orr, like we said, I think Max Hairston is nasty. I think Groot could be an animal. I mean, just like really, really scary on the field. But he's always been up against the tackle with maybe a tight end outside him, but always up close. And the math was wrong. Again, as I said earlier, only 4 guys in the line of scrimmage versus 5 offensive linemen. Now it's 5-on-5, but the outside 2 of our 5 on defense are like wide 7 or wide 9. I mean, they're edge rushers. And they might drop at any given play. You don't know what anyone is going to do. And this is the basis of this defense, and that's the attitude on that side. And then there will be an aggressive attitude on the offense, and we're going to see the Buffalo Bills be something really, really, really different. But let me get to a few of your comments here. I've been ignoring them. Jacob Spears, thanks for the hit. I appreciate that. He's talking go Bills, definitely. And then let's get to some other of your older ones. The others, not so much. We got that one. The Jaws reference. Thank you, Norm. Yes, that was in one of the vids. And that's true. You couldn't run this properly bringing in Myles Garrett, even if you could get him. And I know people are saying you're crazy, you're ridiculous. I don't think so. He's trying to build a defense. He doesn't need the chandelier before the walls are framed. I go through all your comments every time. You must be drooling over the sound system in that house Josh built, Ralph. And Slim, we're going to talk about that right now. This is why I love doing live, because I just get off on, I'm flying somewhere high over the stadium and come back to another point to make. And I did a video actually last year, and then I've done another one this year. The one last year was called Built for Winter, Tuned for Noise, in which I went over everything about the stadium and how the wind is going to be non-existent down at the field level, and how a lot of the fans are covered looking straight down at the stadium, of course. And in any event, whichever direction precipitation is coming from, 60% will be covered. And of course, there's the sound system for sure. It's 96 tons of speakers in 32 emplacements under the canopy that are the sound in the place. It's never been done. It's sick. It's huge. But the biggest thing about the sound in the stadium is going to be Bills Mafia. Because the underside of the canopy, and, I don't have a graphic to put up here, but I can grab a sheet of paper real quick. And when we know, if we look at a cross-section of the canopy, that it's like something like this. And this long edge would be the part over the stadium. That's covering the fans here. And then this other edge is the outer one. It's not that severe. The water collects down here from the snowmelt system. But the underside of these panels are covered with corrugated metal. I think it's steel, obviously, and it's corrugated with the ridges running inboard, outboard, or from the sideline towards the center field, if you will. And there are over 1/3 square feet of this above the fans. 350,000 square feet. Now, when I did my walk-around video at the stadium, right, I was overlooking at the old stadium and the demolition of it, the old Ralph. And we were under this, it wasn't a bus stop, but it was some kind of, not an enclosure, but just a roof over it. And it has the same panel on it. And I'm listening to my voice reflect off this. And dudes, when you get 60,000 people shrieking from those balls up into that canopy and it reflecting down on the field, and he means so clearly, not muddy, but really clear, Bills Mafia is going to feel like they've been plugged into a freaking guitar amp. And it is going to be loud. And that loudness that they are able to create is going to make them louder. It's like a chain reaction. And it's going to be the loudest place in football. And I think that teams are going to have a difficult time playing there. And, one thing to actually think of is the fact that the Bills' defense, as I was talking about earlier, required a lot of communication in the McDermott days. And the problem would be that if you're at home and the opposing offense is out there and it's 3rd and 20, the crowd, Bills Mafia, is going crazy. And the defense can't hear themselves communicate. This defense does not need to communicate like that. This defense instead will platoon sub-packages, and those sub-packages will have a job that they do. It won't be asking one guy to do several jobs. And then we're talking, even along the line with the rotations we were talking about, but you won't have something like Teron Johnson, who's not with the team anymore, but he got hurt a lot because he had to stop the run as well as go defend pass. And the Bills will have different packages together for this. But that's going to be the stadium. That's the head coach. Those are the new coordinators. And, a lot of great new players. Oh, my goodness. Skylar Bell is going to be scary. DJ Moore. Let's talk about DJ Moore for a second. And I'm going to just have a little short slurp to DJ Moore, because I want you to go watch some tape on DJ Moore. And watch him in any game and get his highlights from last year. What you'll see is something really cool. When the ball is coming at him, he doesn't deploy his hands. He doesn't stick out his hands to catch it until the very last instant. It's almost as if he puts them out as the ball arrives. And you can say, oh, that's a great talent. Well, what it does is that when a defender is looking at him, they know when he puts his arms out for a football that the ball's coming. So the defender will turn around and face the quarterback and try to break it up or intercept the ball. But if the defender looking at DJ Moore doesn't know the ball is coming, and DJ Moore has this ability to just snag the ball at the very last instant. His body doesn't make a reaction to the football until the very last instant. It's not like he has his hands ready and they open. He's this, and then he's this at that very last instant when the ball arrives. I call them late hands. I mean, he's able to deploy them very, very late in the throw. And because of that, the defender doesn't know the ball's coming, doesn't have any time to react. This is going to make a huge difference. And then we have the law of gravity, because if you can do that with DJ Moore, what does that do for Khalil Shakir? What does that do for the tight ends? And what does that do for Keon Coleman? And I think Keon Coleman is going to be a rage this season. He's big, he's strong. He came to Buffalo as a kid. He's having a great offseason. And he perhaps had some problems, but that's another huge issue I have with McDermott. And just remember with McDermott, his very first season, he ran Marcel Darius, the Bills' #1 pick at defensive tackle, off before they'd even played a regular season game when McDermott became coach. Marcel Darius, number 99. And he never saw a play in the field. And it was made public that, he was attitude or late for meetings or whatever else it was. And then he suspended Shady McCoy half a game. That happened. But then, worse yet, in the mandatory minicamp, I think it would have been, 3 years ago now, when Diggs wasn't there and McDermott starts telling the media, I'm concerned, and they start asking all these questions. McDermott, again there, and then finally with Keon Coleman last season, takes the disciplinary action, whatever McDermott's trying to do with the player, and makes it public. Why? Why, Sean? Why? I mean, do you think you're going to embarrass the guy into it? But you lose respect as a coach like that, because you need to be able to sit across the desk from a guy and go, look, we've got this situation. It needs to change to this. And you need to do it now. And I want you to explain to me that you understand that. There's a way to do that and not make it public. But Keon Coleman is going to be awesome this year. That's another prediction. And the Bills will have a very prolific passing game, and Josh Allen will have a very prolific season. I'm making that prediction. I also predict that the Bills will run the ball effectively, but far less than they do or than they did in 2025. That's not a stretch to predict because, my goodness, as much as they ran the ball, I mean, I don't know how much you could do that again. You are going to wear James Cook out. Brady and Carmichael Jr. are correct on that. But it's not about slowing James down and wanting to get away from the run game. It's about wanting to turn this into a passing offense because you've got, Josh Allen. And Josh Allen wasn't really used properly last season. And I think Brady's made that change, but he hasn't made the change with incorporating Brady's offense. I think most certainly Pete Carmichael Jr. has far more to do than we know with what we're going to see on the offensive side of the ball with the Bills. That's another prediction because I think it is going to be pass heavier. I think it will be more sure in its short passing game where you've got high percentage throws, where you've got situations where Josh has a sure thing on a given play to be able to take the pressure off. And that's maybe similar to what he had with Cole Bishop at one time. You could always count on Cole to get open, but he needs to have that ability to find and create that even after the snap if necessary. And, as far as the Bills' offensive line goes, you've just got two replacements. One's going to be left guard, and the other one, of course, is Pat Meyer, the new offensive line coach, which, again, my trust in Brady's hires for coordinators and assistant coaches is marrow deep. I definitely think he's gotten this right. I think he's allowing this team to flourish, and I think he's basically unleashing this team. It wasn't that McDermott was just trying to get him over the wall with an extra little push. No, McDermott was standing on their heads or shoulders, preventing it. And I think that's gone now. And, a lot of people are worried about the season opener. Listen, every team that gets its ass kicked in the playoffs in the last game, I don't mean just the playoff exit by 3 or 4 points like the Bills specialized in over the past few years. I'm talking about a playoff whooping. And if that happens, normally that leaves a mark on the team it happens to, and it has its effect the next season. To wit, the Kansas City Chiefs got the hell beat out of them a couple Super Bowls ago by the Philadelphia Eagles. And whereas Mahomes had not great offensive years for like 3 years then last year came along, and they were really bad. And people will look at it, well, Mahomes was hurt. Mahomes wasn't hurt until the end. They were bad with a couple of extra A's. And then this year we've just had Seattle Seahawks just embarrass the Patriots in the Super Bowl. We're terrible. I don't like Drake May. I don't think he's great. He reminds me of a better version of Mac Jones. I mean, he's all right. He's a technician and so forth. They had an easy schedule last season, the fourth place schedule, and the third or fourth easiest in some kind of long history period, to understand. And, of course, the Bills had that too, but they had 3 different games, did the Bills. And the Bills had their problems for what we've talked about the whole night, but Patriots got their asses kicked in the Super Bowl. There's going to be marks on them when they come out. And I tell you who else there's going to be marks on in the season opener, and that's the Houston Texans. Because C.J. Stroud was abominable. Is the term terrible? He was abominable. He was horrifying in the playoffs. And that will leave a mark also, especially early in the season And you can't get there much earlier for the Bills, that is, than the season opener down there. Because as much as everything was offered, the standing on the heads or shoulders of the Bills last season, the Bills were still a play away from beating them down there. This year will be different. This year will be different. Be of good cheer, because this is a scary football team, guys. The roster is ranked pretty high. A lot of the prognosticators don't know, so they're sticking with Vegas at 10-7. A lot of them have them in the playoffs as a wild card. Bills will win the division, and I'm predicting they're going to win the Super Bowl. Now, of course, injuries can happen in all of this. Obviously, I'm talking about if the durability of the team is there, and what I think they're creating is getting created, and we'll see it, somewhat of it being put together in the preseason, but we won't really know until the regular season starts and it gets out there for real and what they're really going to do, because they're not giving things away in the preseason. And we'll have to see it develop and hope that the Bills' offense is as prolific as I think it can be with Pete Carmichael Jr., now the architect of the play calling of Joe Brady. Yeah, offense is going to be serious. These guys are going to be tough. And this stadium is going to be, I don't think people understand how loud this place is going to be. I think there's a concept, it's trying to get as loud as Arrowhead or Lumen Field, because Lumen kind of has those canopies over the top. No, man, this place is going to be sick. And I don't even think they know. I don't think the Bills, I don't even think the designers of the place actually know what it's going to sound like when you've got 60,000 Bills Mafia, or actually 65 when you fill up the standing room only area that's in the east end zone. It's going to be loud. I stepped away from your comments. I'm usually not that. You must be drooling over the sound system. Yes, indeed, as I just spent so long on. And let's see. 26 to 29. Okay, 206 to 209. Thanks, Norm. I know that was an answer to how long that might have been how long Jim Leonard was with the Bills. Rexy's great as a defensive coordinator. Yeah, he is. I mean, his father, Buddy Ryan, of course, inventor of the 46 defense. And those 85 Bears were considered the best defense all time. And that was his father. You got to read collision low crossers. It sounds weird. It's collision low crossers, which is actually an instruction from a playbook about a linebacker hitting somebody, usually swift, like a slot receiver perhaps, or a crosser within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and knocking him on his ass if possible. But not as a head coach. Yeah, Rex, and you read that book, you understand why, actually. Rex wasn't insistent enough on getting what he wanted, is really what it came down to. Hello, Bills Mafia. This year's Buffalo Bills are special. Just wait and see. Thanks, Jason Bush. Good to see you here in the house. Let's keep on going through your comments here. Ralph, agreed, but players got to make plays. So many playoff games. Big players didn't show. Yeah, I just think there was an attitude problem in how players were used. And what you're saying can absolutely be true. And I think a lot of it has to do with the attitude of the team. These guys, they aren't robots, and they are going to play better if they're as one and they're tight and they're confident in what they're doing and they're led with some kind of emotion. There was no attitude on the Bills' sideline ever. I mean, guys might get excited with a score or something, but you had no coaches running up and down the field and pumping their fist or getting in guys' faces. You do now. Bo Hardigree is the new quarterback's coach. If you've seen pictures of this dude, he's a younger guy, but he he looks like a prick. And I mean, every picture I see of him. And Brady came right out and told him, listen, you're going to be the voice down there. I know that Pete Carmichael will be in there with Josh, and I'll always be sticking my nose in there, probably too much with Josh. But you're the guy, you're the coach. You're not here to be his friend. And that's the guy that's going to walk over and like hit Josh on the shoulder pad or get in his grill when things aren't going right. Josh needs that. Josh wants that. It's okay. It's okay to want to be coached hard in ball games like that because he gets inspired from it. He reacts well. Some other people don't, but he definitely needs that. Norm also, Josh Allen built the new Highmark Stadium or it would be Toronto Bills. Agreeing McDermott couldn't coach to the big win, but Brady was the OC. Yeah, hey, I'm not blaming that on Brady because I think McDermott was stepping on the offense. But moreover, we've got a new offensive coordinator in the house now, and this is going to be different. It's not Brady's offense. They're looking at it, and of course they'll use elements of it, but it's going to be different. It's going to be different. I'm keeping going here. Black Cloud is with us. Ralph, what was Bean's reasoning to not get Waddle and saying he doesn't want to lose the first-round pick, only to trade down yet again and not get a first-round pick? Well, trading a first-round pick for a receiver that's already been in the league and is a known quantity is one thing, but trading a first-round pick to get more picks, come on. Bean was brilliant at gathering the draft picks he gathered with his trade downs this year. That was awesome, and the guys he got. T.J. Parker we haven't even talked about him. This guy is going to be great. He's out on the edge, and we're not talking the bursty, bendy, lighter edges that could be like swatted away like a larger version of horsefly. We're talking about, bigger dudes. And I think Bean did a great job with those picks. And I totally agree with not going after Waddle and not sacrificing a first-round pick, especially when it's coming into a situation that the head coach has his fingerprints all over, and you don't want to be saddled with that. I couldn't agree with it more. I don't have a single problem with Bean. I think he played all of this brilliantly, and I don't agree that he's a bozo at all. Norm, the Bills fan with us, totally agree, Black Cloud. Well, I don't agree with either of you then. And I guess I just ran out of comments. So, but that's seriously how I feel about the situation, guys. And I think we're seeing just a different situation, so different than we can imagine. But like many of these national prognosticators I mentioned early on, and I talk about in this vid I'm going to release tonight, they're all really basing what they believe about the Bills on 2025. And of course, what else do they have to work with? But they're even talking about player stats and talking about Groot only having X number of sacks. But Groot was in the defense they were playing. This defense is going to be really different. It's not going to be a protective, reactive defense. They're going to be aggressive. Both sides of the football are going to be really aggressive. And it'll be rare that we see something like that in the NFL. I just can't wait to see it. Oh, Norm's going to the Ravens November 1st. I probably won't actually be there, but I do plan on doing some in-game pods where we're actually covering the game. I'll actually be doing a play-by-play, and what we'll do is I'm going to end up having a clock on the screen so guys can sync the game clock of the game where they're watching it based on what the timing is of receiving it. And if you're on like a DVR, you can pause it and then it can be synced up. And I'll be calling the games, trying to do it in the tradition of Van Miller, that 10-foot tall guy who was pretty short, but man, was Van great. And so be looking forward to that. A couple more of your comments here. What's up, Ralph? Scott here, Patriots fan, but also a fan of yours. You guys get excited about your new stadium? Stupid question. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and if you check on the site, I did a walk around of it 2 weeks ago, Sunday, on Father's Day. And the video just doesn't do it justice. The top of the canopy, and we were talking about the inner edge of the canopy around the field, is 110 feet above the field level. And the field level, when you walk up to the stadium, everybody knows the old Ralph was dug out of the ground. So when you walked up to the stadium and got inside, it's like, oh, wow, wait a minute. We're already on top of the upper bowl, and we just walked down the stairs. You're walking down into the hole that was dug. And you're thinking, okay, well, with the new stadium, it's a grass field. You're going to walk in and you're level with the field. No. The field in the new Highmark Stadium is still 35 feet below grade. Now, for reference, across the street at the old Ralph, it was 50 feet below grade. But the field inside is 35 feet below essentially the parking lot surface when you get in there. And it is stacked so high and tall. The old Ralph would have had the upper decks like this, and if you had somebody seated in the 50-yard line and one upper deck or the other side, and now you have the new stadium with the upper decks higher and closer in, the guy at the 50-yard line and the top row is now 41 feet closer to the field than he was at the top row, 50-yard line, the upper deck, and the Ralph. And sound reacts with the inverse square of distance. I mean, the closer you get, it just doesn't double. It's exponential. And with the reflections off the inside of that canopy, and as loud as that sound system will be, it'll be really, really loud in that place. But yeah, I believe that. And I believe it's going to be tough for opposing offenses because I don't think the NFL's heard anything like this. And it's like Bills Mafia. They now have an instrument. It's like one of the designers, and I had him at the beginning of that video, the loudest place in football. And he said, Bills Mafia has always been loud. Now they're going to be on steroids when he's talking about them being under this new canopy. We have no receivers. Now, I'm sure you put that out like almost an hour ago, and I haven't been keeping up with the contacts. And because you rethought that, Norm. I can't believe you're saying we have no receivers. I think I probably explained through it pretty well. But DJ Moore is a true number one receiver that we haven't had. Khalil Shakir is also awesome as a number two. You've got three actually great pass-catching tight ends. And then you've got Ty Shavers, I'm wearing his jersey tonight, coming back. And, of course, Josh Palmer. And there's going to be a gravity effect by having Moore, who is going to pull attention away from the others. There's going to be a lot more choices for Josh. So I don't buy the receiver thing at all. And Skylar Bell is going to be scary. Skylar Bell is a real gem. I don't know who I would project him as, but you think of some fourth-round receiver that, turned out to be something. I mean, I think that's what they're looking with Skylar Bell. Bring back Diggs. Well, yeah, I guess I'm wearing his jersey. But you don't know it says Diggs on the back. It does have the captain thing. My daughter was crestfallen when he left the team. But it's now Ty Shaver's number, so. Keeping going on your comments, trying to catch up here. Don't bring back Diggs. Too much drama with him and Allen. The Bills are in a good place without him. If he comes back, he'll mess everything up. He's got too much baby mama drama off the field, too. Bills aren't going to touch Diggs. There's too much stuff. bit too much of a diva. There's a subset of reasons that are the same as for not bringing in Myles Garrett. Not exactly the same thing. I don't mean to intimate that. Thank you, Norm. This is why you watch. We're getting into it. Just win, Black Cloud. Agree, Black Cloud, but have stopped thinking nice guys win. That is for sure. Nice guys, I mean, this is why you have a defense with an attitude now. These guys are pricks, and they're going to play with people. They're scared of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm not talking the offenders, but of bringing him in because possible penalties. But I think he's more mature now, and I think he's going to be with a pack of guys that are all like that, and it's going to be different. It's going to change for him based on where he's been before, because it's going to be nasty defense. I mean, these guys are going to be trembling with hostility. Diggs failed to show up in big games at crucial moments. He can't be trusted. Yeah, well, that's for sure. I mean, the second half of his last season here, he fell way the hell off. That corresponded with Brady getting the offensive coordinator job, and then he was gone after that. And then McDermott made a big deal of him not being at minicamp. So I think a good head coach kind of solves that. But I think you can't underestimate how much the weight of McDermott was working on this team. Yes, agree. But what do we got for a threat based on Cap? DJ Moore and Keon? Ralph going to shut me down quick. Yeah, I already did. Norm, Josh needs to run more than they have him run already. His legs are best threat for teams to plan a defense for. I don't think they're going to have him doing that. I think it will be always a threat, and you're not going to stop him from doing it. But I don't see him doing a lot of designed runs. He may scramble some because if the Bills can have their way and get as close to 5 guys out as eligibles as they can, then you're going to have a lot of man coverage on the other side. And in man coverage, what's the defender doing? He's looking at the man. He's looking at DJ Moore, waiting for him to put his hands out. But, of course, as we already learned, DJ Moore doesn't put his hands out until the last second. And so when he starts, the guy turns away, he's done. So, no, I don't see that. I see Josh as becoming more of an artist in the passing game, and that's what they're developing for him. It's going to be a situation where on most plays, on most passing plays, Josh will have a layup available to him. In my opinion, it's all our opinions, of course. Did I miss this, Ralph? Question about the stadium, just think of now. Is it set up in a way where the sun is always shining on the away team's bench, how Miami has done to mess with the away teams? Actually, yes, it is. I mean, it's never going to be as big a deal in Buffalo as it would be in South Florida. Believe me, I've been to games down there. But the stadium is, the old Ralph is kind of oriented with the west end zone was pointing slightly south of west, and the east end zone was pointing slightly north of west. And this stadium is actually twisted quite a bit more to where it's the west end is actually more northwest, and then you've got the southeast end. And because of the fact that the sun is farther south in the fall, of course, now, when you're getting towards past the autumnal equinox, that means that when the sun is coming around that low, that stadium will be angled during much of the season where the sunshine is directly hitting that player's sideline. But not on the Bills, because the Bills will have their back to it. And the Bills will be on, if you're driving, for example, let's say you're driving south on Abbott Road to come up to the stadium, and you kind of come along the side of the stadium, but the further end you pass is where the player entrances are, and it's the side opposite Abbott Road that will be the Bills side of the stadium, the Bills sideline, the Bills locker room, and so forth. 4 turnovers. You might say it was partially Allen's fault, and that's exactly why he was crying and should have been. I agree with that. I mean, he felt he really lost it. He wasn't crying because they ran the ball all season or, McDermott, had his hands on the offense or even because he'd gotten hit by Myles Garrett in Cleveland and actually had that little tiny bone break in his foot that he dealt with the entire rest of the season. He could have been crying about any of those things, but you're right. It was the turnovers. And I will always contend, though, just like when we're talking about a math problem, right? And you've got this math problem where you're starting out with a bunch of variables at the beginning, and you insert in a number for this one variable, but it's like the wrong number. And what ends up happening is it like ruins the whole equation the rest of the way. And that was what James Cook's fumble in the first quarter, I believe, did to the Bills. The Bills were already ahead, and they were driving down to take a bigger lead. And, and if you'd wanted to get Myles Garrett last year at the trade deadline was the time to get him because maybe he could have broken Bo Nix's foot at the end of the first quarter and not the end of the game. And then the Bills would have won it going away and, of course, beaten the Patriots and gone to the Super Bowl and probably given Seattle a hell of a game. They might have even won. And Sean McDermott would still be here, and there'd be a part of every one of us that would worry just a little bit because it just seemed like it took McDermott just to push these guys, just to get them to the edge where they would actually get over the hump, get over the wall, get to the Super Bowl. And a lot of these people think like these prognosticators I went over earlier that they were wrong to get rid of McDermott, that McDermott was the reason this was happening. It only took a little bit more of a push from McDermott to get the Bills over that wall. But I contend that Sean McDermott was standing on the heads of the Bills, weighing them down. And he's off now. And now you've got Joe Brady, who's this young enabler, full of energy, and he's brilliant at football, and all the guys he's surrounded himself with are brilliant at football. They're all really confident. They all sound like they know what they're talking about. And, this is going to be different. And I'm glad this is this. Because I think, whereas McDermott, I always say, it's like the Bible story or the Cecil B. DeMille movie. He's like Moses. He was able to lead, was Moses, the Hebrews out of the desert, out of bondage from the Egyptians. He even led them across the Red Sea. But he couldn't take them across the River Jordan into the land flowing with milk and honey. And I'm telling you, that's McDermott was Moses. He could lead the Bills out of the drought. And he could get them close. Get through that Red Sea? Well, not quite if you want to call that the Kansas City Chiefs. But he just couldn't get them across the River Jordan. And, of course, who did it take to get them across? Joshua, of course. Of course, it's not Josh Allen, it's Joe Brady that's the head coach. But I feel that this is a setup with the Bills that people are way, way underestimating. Because if you look at it different and figure that it wasn't the Bills not quite being good enough, but it was more the Bills being held down by something that now is gone and they are going to leap. And I think this could happen. And why? Because Jim Leonard is a genius on defense. I guarantee you this. The guys have called him the silent assassin. And if you weren't with me earlier, and check it out in the video I'm putting out tomorrow morning. Jim Leonard kept notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full of notes when he was learning Rex Ryan's defense as a player with both the Ravens and the Jets. And then Joe Brady is the perfect CEO for this team. He's confident of himself. He enables guys. Guys are allowed to talk, allowed to think. Like I said earlier, listen to his press conferences and listen to the press conferences of his coordinators. And then go listen to the press conferences given by Brady and Babich last year. And you say, well, that was still Brady last year. I think McDermott had everything under his thumb. That's how he had become. I don't blame him for it. He started off, created the process with his great way to go ahead and win in the first season and actually make it to the playoffs. And that process gets a name, the process, and it becomes legend, and it becomes rock, and it becomes inflexible. And that inflexibility is what was preventing the Bills from having the attitude and mindset to get past that next level. And they are capable of it. It's not about talent. Listen, every team in the league is talented. And the Bills, though, are specifically talented in a number of spots. Right? ESPN has them ranked as the number 4 roster this season. Even though I won't use the word because I want to get this monetized, but Bill Barnwell, who believes the Bills' skill positions are ranked 29 out of the 32 teams going into this season. He had 28 last year, but the Bills were a top 5 offense. I don't get some of these guys, but what they're doing is they're looking, I think, a lot from the outside. If you don't dig into the Bills, okay, what it looks like is you've got the offensive coordinator who everybody knew in the building. He's kind of the lazy hire. Let's bring him in. Josh already knows him. This is a safe move. We can't risk having the team like really tank after winning for all these years, or we'll be blamed forever for getting rid of Sean McDermott. And that's what they see. And so many of these guys I looked at with their prognostications for this season, I mean, they're just talking about they're fading the team, 10-7 wild card, not winning the division, basically giving it up again to the Patriots. And Mike, I can't keep my Vrabel zipped up or whatever. I'm sorry. I mean, give me a break. The Patriots got stomped in the playoffs. The Texans got stomped in the playoffs. And the Bills will meet them both in the first few weeks of the season. The opener with Houston. Bills got a score to settle with those guys. And you wait. That score will be settled. I think Bills win week 1. What's good? Okay, I guess that is. But what great timing for pulling that up. I didn't even see that. Yeah, I do think they win in week 1. I think this defense is going to confuse C.J. Stroud. He's already demonstrated that under playoff or heavy-duty circumstances, he's not good. And listen, this is going to be an important game. In the AFC, this opener is going to be huge because immediately somebody's going to have a tiebreaker over the other for playoff seeding. Although I just don't have a lot of. We'll see how their defense is, too. I mean, that defense will be tough to repeat from last year. We'll just see. I'm not really worried about the Ravens. Yes, you'll call me a homer, but I'm telling you what, I feel a certain way about this Bills team. Thanks, Ralph. Steve. Yes, I am Steve, as you guys know. My name is not Ralph. And by the way, I have never referred to myself ever once on this show as Ralph. No, I am not Ralph. I am the Ralph. And I won't explain why that is today, but my name is Steve Salter, and I am the host of this podcast. And by the way, I had a chance to do a sit-down with Del Reed. He's the co-founder of Bill's Mafia, and his channel is, he's got both Herd and Buffalo and also Mafia family ties. And I was with him a couple of weeks ago when I was in Western New York. Went to the studio. We sat down and talked for a good long time. It was all taped. It's being edited, and it's going to be on his channel, and I'll share it for sure sometime in the first part of August. And that was a nice conversation with Del Reed. I do get Arthur Motes on with us once in a while, and I'm going to be tabbing Arthur very soon to talk about what's going on with this Bills defense. Arthur has experience in that kind of situation, especially making the move from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Black Cloud, how much do you think gambling and all these prop bets will have an effect on the season? Not just the Bills games, but the entire NFL as a whole. I don't know what you mean by effect. If you're talking about there being malfeasance where you've got players shaving points or something like that in the NFL in order to make a bet happen, I just don't see that happening in the NFL. Those guys are too dedicated to what they do. You might have one person, and those are usually found out, but as far as it having any real effect on any games, I don't think so. If you want to talk about effect, and this is another show I'm planning, I've got a friend of mine, a very nice lady that is into the law of attractions, and we're going to talk a lot about the attitude of people about the Bills and how their thoughts actually can materially affect what's going on with the Bills. You talk about betting. I don't think it's so much about the players getting involved in making money at it. I think it's more about what large groups of people are hoping for, because those thoughts can kind of create that reality. It's called the law of attractions. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but I think definitely the attitude of Bills fans definitely affects the team, and many that are negative, of course, I have referred to in the past as Debbie Downers. And certainly I don't want to be accused of being sexist or somehow using a woman's name in a derogatory fashion, but that's certainly not the case, because Debbie, in this case, Debbie, is nothing to do with the girl's name. It's an acronym, and that acronym is Drought Enhanced Buffalo Bills Insecurity Effect. So that afflicts a lot of fans, and that influences guys that always have something to say bad about McDermott or Pagula, or, how the owner is robbing the fans and making so much money. Hey, you know what? That stadium cost $2.26 billion. And Terry Pagula, at last count, was paying for 53% of it. And the tax from New York State that was paid was largely not tax, but the funds were from a payout from the Seneca Nation when they finally settled some business and with running the casinos with the state, and that chunk of money was just used. And then you had Erie County, I believe, came in with, I think, $600 million or $250 million, I think it was. I'm not exactly sure. Yes, taxpayers contributed, but Terry Pagula is paid for most of it. And Terry Pagula is also responsible for any of these cost upgrades or increases. We get partway through the project. There was a lot of those. Those are all on him. Those aren't on the taxpayers. So I don't listen to anything concerning that at all about on the stadium. With Allen 4 turnovers, Bills still should have won. Well, yes, they should have. And did you just see the story that came out today that Sean Payton almost ran a fake punt and he was vetoed because the fake punt relied on Ty Shavers being on the field, but Ty Shavers was injured and not playing in the game. That's on CBS Sports today, NFL page. 13-4 coming. And hot, Josh Allen will win MVP again, and the Bills will win the Super Bowl. Go Bills. Pez, I like that. I could maybe see the 4. The Rams could be a tough game, but somehow I think the Bills are going to win an awful lot of games this season, because I think since we're close to them, we underestimate what it is. We've seen it a lot. But there is something different going on with this ball club. And we'll hopefully see it start to come together well in the preseason. But I have a feeling it's going to. I like this coaching staff. I just feel right about it. I like listening to these guys. I like their confidence. It sounds nothing like we've heard from Buffalo Bills coaching staffs in the past few years in their pressers. This is different. There was another agreement on that. Yeah, I like the Bills' chances. And people say, well, you're first-year head coach. Horse crap. The teams in the Super Bowl last February, like this year, the two teams had a second-year head coach and a first-year head coach. Seattle and the Patriots, respectively. So this crap about first-year head coach, I think Brady's going to be great. I think he's really smart. I think he's going to be good at it. But the other thing is that he understands how not to do it, I think. I think he's seen it done incorrectly. I think he's seen the things that have happened. And he's certainly dedicated to it. And I'm not saying Sean McDermott wasn't, but there's just a difference. And I think we're going to see the difference on the field. It actually sounds pretty exciting. So anyhow, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I'm still going to be coming out with a video tomorrow morning that is entitled Unleashed with a question mark. And I think that is what is going on with Joe Brady and what he's doing with these Bills. Because I said, I don't believe the weight of Sean McDermott is on this any longer. That's gone, and it's been replaced with a positive energy. It was like almost a negative energy of how he had to run the team because his way of running the team failed on him. It's no fault of his, but things just change. And now this is different. And I think we cannot underestimate the power of the coaching selections that Joe Brady made. A lot of people are not talking about it. Jim Leonard will be the head coach of an NFL football team and will probably be the next freaking Belichick. We'll be lucky to have him for a few years. He's brilliant. They're gonna make this work. They've got some dudes. They've got some nasty dudes. You guys know it. Chubb is ready to show something. Groot. Chubb had a good year last year with Miami. He was coming off the injury. Now he's off the injury. He's going to be scary. He's going to be scary. Groot's going to be scary. Ed Oliver is going to be a menace. Deion Walker in year 2. And we haven't talked about Michael Hoyt, who is like a secret weapon of this defense. This defense is going to be sick, guys. If guys don't get hurt, and, hopefully that's the case, it's going to be scary. I mean, Jim Leonard is like the new thing in defense. He's all over the hybrid or positionless players. It's getting back to an old Rex Ryan concept of having players being able to be a threat from different spots on the field. Because it makes a difference. These guys watch a lot of film when they go through and prepare for other teams. And if you're watching this, and you don't know what's coming, especially the first game of the season, because the Bills, remember in the preseason is not about them practicing what they're going to do in the regular season. The preseason is about demonstrating individual performance by various players. You'll see vanilla offense and vanilla defense. Either you're in a one-on-one or a double team on the line. You're running this route. Can we execute? Can we put it together? You won't be seeing any strategy. Boy, but come week 1, we have no idea what this defense is going to look like. But the guy designing it is a serious dude, Jim Leonard. as everybody knows, he started out as a Bills free agent, undrafted free agent, and then went on to the Ravens, played under Rex, both the Ravens and the Jets, then went on and coached defense for 6 years at Wisconsin, came into the NFL. He was, I think, with the Broncos the last couple of years, last year anyway, and of course he was their defensive pass game coordinator. But this guy knows defense, and this will be very, very interesting to see it come out. Let's hope Joshy doesn't have to throw up before every game after seeing the little one come into the world. I think he'll be fine. I think you're going to see a lot more relaxed Josh. I think he's going to be able to be more of an artist and less frantic. I think Pete Carmichael is setting it up so Josh can create after the snap. And if you can get that offense tuned just so to where Josh Allen is being creative after the snap and really effective. I'm not talking about running for his life. I'm talking about being creative with what he could do. That's a whole different ballgame. Now that becomes really scary. That becomes dangerous. New England head coach and Seattle head coach were both in year 2. No, that was Vrabel's first year. Or maybe the weight of McDumbass off his shoulders will help the offense too, or whatever. Well, absolutely. I mean, he had his hands all over the offense to McDermott. Go listen to Ty Dunn talk about on the Go Long podcast and talk about what his interview with Josh Allen. He did a half an hour. Wouldn't that be cool? And then he also talked to a lot of other people, and it was apparent that McDermott's fingerprints were all over the offense last season because McDermott was attempting to protect his defense. And he had to protect the defense, as we talked about earlier in the show, because the defense used to be great. His defense is very complex. His pass defense is really effective because it's complex and confusing. But you needed Rhodes scholars to really run it effectively. But he had those. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Hyde was brilliant at it. Hyde could have coached. I mean, Hyde's kind of like Leonard as far as having that level of football knowledge and being able to play that well. And it was great when they had them. You guys remember the perfect game in the 8 degrees? 47 to 8 or 10, I think the Bills won. But yes, that's a different story now with how this team is going to play. And again, I say in the attitude, go back and look at my videos from last season. And I talk about the Bills having reached their ceiling with McDermott. I talk about that there's no attitude on the sideline of Bills games, that there's nobody yelling, screaming, shouting. There's no coaches gathering players around. And I think it just became so inflexible. I think the process finally grew into a monster. And again, if you weren't here earlier, the process, to me, which became a thing, there were T-shirts, just, take the process, use the process, follow the process, I guess it was. Well, the process started when McDermott came to Buffalo and wanted to turn over every last thing to get every last detail so he had every chance to win. Kind of a lesser-known candidate for a not-so-popular job. And then, lo and behold, doing that, he gets the Bills into the playoffs his very first season. He breaks the playoff drought. And that became his book. That became the process. And that became, that's right, trust the process. And the process was great because you had Hyde and Poyer and you had a Josh Allen that was exploding into his talent. But you still couldn't win the ball game because you still couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. For the most part, that was what happened against the Chiefs in those games. Yes, you would have counted on Diggs having caught that ball that was right there at the end of that game where then Tyler Bass had to miss the field goal. Or it's tied. But it was really about the pass rush. And I think that's, of all the changes to the Bills this season, the biggest is going to be the defense. But that's only because it's a brand new scheme with a brand new mind, with a brand new attitude. And Jim Leonard's a killer, man. He's quiet, but he's a killer. What he has planned, I just can't wait to see. And the dudes he's got to do it with. Yes, talent is important, and maybe they're not all the most talented guys in the league. But I'm telling you what, he's got the attitude, and he's got some dogs. And he's got some nasty. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Sal Capaccio asked him, why did Jim Leonard want to target you to come to the Bills? C.J. immediately says, he wanted me to be mean. He wanted me to be mean. They are looking for attitude. They are looking for nasty. They are looking for dogs, snarling dogs. They are looking for apex predators, enforcers that are trembling with hostility. Because you can talk all you want about talent. Dude, this game's about attitude, man. It has and always will be about intimidating the other team. That is the absolute core of it. How you intimidate them are many and varied ways, which makes it such a great game. But it's about intimidation. And a lot of nasty dudes on this defense. A lot of nasty guys, a lot of dogs. And we've got guys already on the team. We just don't know they're dogs because they're going to be let loose now. And this is going to be different. This is no longer McDermott's protective, reactive defense that you make sure nobody gets behind you. You always got the play in front of you. You always prevent the big play against you. That's how McDermott won with defense. That was the way he did it. And it was fine. I mean, when the Bills were clowning teams, 41-10, that's great. But at some point, it's going to catch up with you not having a particular attitude on both sides of the ball. And that attitude was not there with that defense. You had guys that were certainly capable of the attitude. And I hear people saying, well, big players should make big plays, when it counts. Yeah, absolutely. But it depends on the entire attitude of the team. And I just think that style of defense, that's going to be so different. And I think that people that are looking a little more closely at the Bills will, of course, take the view that, okay, it's the defense is going to be the big change. How is that going to be? What's Jim Leonard going to do? We know it's going to a 3-4 from a 4-3. And all of those things. But hidden behind that is what the offense is going to be and how the offense is going to change. And I don't think anybody is talking about or anticipating how different this offense is going to be. And all you've got to do is go listen to the interviews of Joe Brady and Pete Carmichael Jr. when they gave their pressers during the mandatory minicamp. And if you read between the lines, all the answers are there. You don't need to do that. Just go check out my video that is, which one is, I think there's Tools of Engagement, but the previous one is Dogs of War. That's on the offense and the defense respectively. But you go listen to Tools of Engagement. It's a little bit of a watch. There's a lot of press clips in there from Brady and from Pete Carmichael Jr. and a couple of other surprise ones. But I talk a lot in there exactly about what this defensive change or offensive change is going to be. It's sort of behind the scenes a little bit because everyone is looking at what's the Bills' defense going to be with this huge scheme change. But Pete Carmichael, I think, is more of the brilliant architect behind the scenes than we know. And he just strikes me as that. He's a humble guy. He's not going to say it. But you listen to him, and you could tell he's brilliant. And he's got all this experience he had playing under or coaching under Sean Payton. And, of course, so did Joe Brady. They're kind of that school. But Pete Carmichael has not come in here to learn Joe Brady's offense and run it. I think it's more the opposite. I think Pete Carmichael has come in to take a look at what the Bills are doing and make suggestions, but also add dimensions and evolve this defense and evolve it around the best player in the National Football League, Josh Allen. Because, yes, the Bills had a top 5 defense last season, but it was top 5 largely based on the fact that the Bills owned the ball a lot. And why did they own the ball during games a lot? Because they rushed the football more than any other team in the league in terms of attempts and yardage. And they had the rushing title with James Cook. And they were second only to the Ravens in run-to-pass ratio. But that's McDermott, who had his hands all over that. And why? Well, he didn't have Hyde and Poyer in the defense anymore. I mean, you struggled with Cole Bishop through his first year because McDermott's system is so difficult. And it ruins the confidence of a lot of players because if you're in a defense like Leonard is putting out there now, where you are far more going out to do, at the most, A or B, and if A doesn't happen, then you're doing B or something of this nature. But guys are going to be able to get off the ball fast and not have to think a lot. There won't be the mental agility that was required for McDermott's defense. And that's why Cole Bishop couldn't ever get on the field. It's not because he was that much worse than Cooper DeJean, who intercepted a pass from Patrick Mahomes on his birthday in the Super Bowl and housed it. And we're all thinking, oh, why couldn't Brandon Beane gotten Cooper DeJean? He got Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop is great. But he was a rookie, and McDermott's trying to teach him this, I don't know, doctorate level defense that he's got to understand all these different things before he can be effective in it. And this is what's so different about what Jim Leonhard is bringing to the Bills. Because it is not that anymore. Certainly any NFL defense is complex, but it's not that anymore. What it is now is guys attacking. They're attacking to a spot. Are they going to get caught on a couple of plays and give up something long? Yeah, sure. Are people going to be able to run on them really well? No, they're not. If you ask Jim Leonhard and get him to actually answer, what's his priority on this defense? The priority of this defense is stopping the run. Everything else comes from that. So, yes, that's going to be the case with what this team is going to look like. Get this thing to work here. There we go. I think we've got all your questions in, and I think I missed a couple of them here. Actually, that should be a little brighter than it was. I think we drank and smoked back in the day at your tailgate. This is perhaps, but I don't really reside in Western New York, so I don't have a tailgate, but maybe back in the day I was certainly there, and I'm going to believe you on that. Do you remember what game it was or what the time period? Let me know on that, and I know I'm just answering it now because I'm way behind on your comments. I'm at with Josh's nausea, but I'll let you hit that riff again. Yeah, I knew you meant with the nausea, but I don't know if I said puking or not. Release the hounds. Go Bills. Absolutely. And Pez 79, Cole Bishop is going to be a breakout star of this defense. Yes, absolutely. Cole's intelligent, right? And I think Cole can kind of be what Jim Leonard always wanted to be, except in this bigger body that can deliver the kind of blows that Cole Bishop can deliver. We know how bad he stung Travis Kelce last season. You remember it was in the right end zone, the third place, I believe. I don't know if it was their place or at Buffalo, but Cole Bishop hit him right in the sternum, and that was a pretty good shot. It's a good 20 years ago, and that would have been, that would have been about 2005. It could have been the Atlanta game, which may have been the Bills' home opener, and I would have been wearing this garment right here, if you recall that. So how about that? Yeah, that would have been about that time. That would have been Michael Vick and the Atlanta Falcons. I think Takeo Spikes hurt his knee in that game, and I don't know if it was the home opener or the second one of the season, but I know we were down Abbott a ways on the west side of Abbott at a tailgate. We're doing a bunch of sausages, and I know we were drinking, and I know we were smoking. So that may well be the case. But got other people. Let's see who's hanging out in here tonight. We got 26 on YouTube, and we got 7 over on X. I know I looked at on the soccer yesterday. I heard one article say that soccer is going to become the biggest sport in the U.S., and I'm like, really? I don't think so. I didn't grow up with it, but I mean, geez, it's boring. It's slow. It's ponderous. It's so clumsy. You can only use your feet or your head. I mean, it's really kind of silly almost. But that's soccer, and that's all I got to say about that. To quote Forrest Gump. So anyway, guys, yeah, it's been going well here. Where are we in the pod here? We're pretty deep in. I can't even see where the time is here. Oh, there we go. We're right at 2 hours and 1. And it's getting to be midnight, and it is a work night for those of you that do that. So I'm going to stop talking here for tonight. Guys, if you're new to the channel here tonight and looking in on this live, we don't do this a lot. I do it. I have some fun. I didn't really plan this until about an hour before I did it. I should be better at that. I'm going to be trying to get on every Tuesday night here during the preseason at least. And then, of course, when we get into the season, I think I'm going to be doing play-by-play during the games, certainly our post-game show, and then obviously shows a couple of videos throughout the week, and of course, some more live stuff. That Tuesday will be a pretty good night, and then we'll probably be doing something Thursdays, but I like to stay out of the way of Thursday night football, so it could be a little bit earlier. But we'll get into that more, and indeed, if you are new to the channel, go ahead and take the nanosecond to hit that subscribe button and become part of the Ralph Rant. We'll be doing this all off season and then into the season. When we're having a blast doing it, and got more content coming your way actually tomorrow morning, like I said. But I think I got to all the comments. I want to thank everybody that's been hanging out and appreciate your attention and listening to these matters on the Bills. I understand these things. I think I see this for what it is becoming based on the people and what I'm seeing and hearing. We shall see. And until I'm back to you again with another Ralph Rant presentation, as always, be good, do good, God bless, and go Bills. I am the Ralph, and this is the Ralph Rant. Out.